All right.
Yes, we'll also be recording for folks who aren't able to attend, and if you also want to share with your members, friends, family, to really learn how we can register together. Yeah, is the screen sharing on, or am I just spotlighted?
1 second. Give me 1 second as I'm pulling it up. Okay. I'll also be co-emceeing and sharing some information as well. My name is Joseph, as the Deputy Secretary General of Fine USA and Propaganda Officer.
Yes. Yeah, I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Min. I'm Bayan USA's FADEPA officer. And then if any of our other facilitators also want to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. This is Nina, Secretary General of Bayan USA.
Okay, so let's get started. So today we'll really be learning together about how we can register for overseas absentee voting, especially with the deadline for registration coming up at the end of September on the 30th. So yeah, and if we click next slide, so the alliances or organizations that were making this OAB training happen are Migrante USA, Bayan USA, and Malaya Movement USA too. And just to go over who we are, Migrante USA is an alliance of Filipino worker and migrant organizations here in the US dedicated to fighting for the rights and welfares of Filipinos, and also for the genuine democracy and freedom in the Philippines, and also a member of Bayan USA. And Bayan USA is an alliance of Filipino organizations in the US as well, representing workers, migrants, students, youth, women, scholars, and artists. And yeah, the first and largest overseas chapter of Bagong Alianza Makabayan. In the Philippines, and also serving as an information bureau for the National Democratic Movement of the Philippines, and also a center for agitating, organizing, and mobilizing Filipinos here in the US. And finally, but not least, Malaya is also one of our organizations or alliances also holding this training today, and they are a broad movement of individuals, organizations, and various formations really united to advocate for human rights, democracy, and sovereignty in the Philippines. So yeah, we're all happy to have you all today, and excited to hear your questions and really figure out how to register together. Yeah. So we're going to start off with learning a little bit about the history of overseas absentee voting, or OAV. So this actually started around 2003. First via the Republic Act number 9189, that was later amended by Republic Act 10590, which we'll also go over a little bit after this. But essentially, this Republic Act, the first one is stating that all citizens of the Philippines, as well as dual Filipino Americans, or dual citizen Filipino Americans who are disqualified by the law, at least 18 years old by May 12, 2025, may register as overseas voters and also vote for senators and party list representatives in the upcoming 2025 midterm elections in the Philippines. And yeah, as mentioned, OAV was actually enacted around February 4, 2003, and maybe some of y'all were also already voters at that time, or maybe you were young enough to just be born around that time. So yeah, and this was actually enacted, OAB was enacted, especially after the Philippine state noticed that around 25% of the Filipino population at that time working or living overseas was not represented in the elections. And especially as the 50th anniversary of the labor export policy is actually this year, 2025 or 2024, sorry. It was also more significant because it took a while before overseas absentee voting was actually enacted when Filipinos have been migrating for generations all over the world, finding jobs, studying in the US, essentially because of also the conditions in the Philippines that are pushing them away to seek opportunities elsewhere. And it took until like 2003 for overseas absentee voting to start. Okay, and then this Republic Act 10590 amended the original Republic Act to actually expand OAB in 2013 and allowing COMELEC, which is the body that also ensures that the regulations, the laws, and the conduct of the elections are safe, equal, and also like that there isn't cheating happening or things like that. But essentially, this amendment allows the COMELEC to explore more efficient, reliable, and secure modes of systems, ensuring, so long as they ensure the secrecy and sanctity of the entire voting process, whether it's paper-based, electronic-based, or even internet-based technology, especially these days where really a lot of us also have access to the internet now, compared to like directly going to the consulate or an embassy, right? And any other latest technology available for on-site and also remote registration and elections. And this is also crucial because in the upcoming 2025 midterm elections, as we'll also learn later, that online voting will also be happening. And similar to the original Republic Act for OAB, this amendment was also founded because of how really aside from Filipinos not being represented in the election or overseas Filipinos not being represented in the elections process in the Philippines, despite being Filipino nationals still, it's also very hard to go to an embassy or go to a consulate, especially if you're, for example, a seafarer or there isn't a consulate or an embassy in your area, which maybe some of us also are living in areas where there isn't a consulate or maybe there isn't so much outreach to from the consulate. So actually we've been fighting for progressing and like if making the OAB process more efficient over the years already. And as you can see in these pictures, on the first picture, I know it's like this text is really small, but actually this was back in 2009. It's an ABS-CBN article. And there was also a quote from the regional coordinator of Migrante International in the Middle East of how at that time in 2009, the registration period was shortened to just 7 months. But now this time, this cycle is actually 2 years. So there's even been progress in that. And in 2022, actually the COMELEC was actually disagreeing with the idea of online voting, but then obviously in this upcoming 2025 midterm elections, they're really working to have online voting too because of what we'll learn later of like the low turnout that's also coming about because of how difficult it is to not just vote, but even register for the elections in the Philippines. So yeah, despite like the bureaucratic process, there's also been progress made, especially because of what Filipino nationals overseas have also been fighting for, advocating for, and even sharing about. Yeah. Okay. And then just some updates for this year. So 2024, especially because it's the last period for this cycle's or this election cycle's registration process. There is a budget of about 77 or $775,000 for OAB. But it's actually still unclear what the utilization rate of this has been because of the lack of transparency too. And then also, sorry, I saw the comment. And then also for online voting that I mentioned earlier, it's going to start as well for this upcoming midterm elections. And the COMELEC has actually already made a deal with this new company called I1 Resource Incorporated and another Ardent Networks Incorporated just this past April to start the online voting system. because of the low turnout, where only around 600,000 Filipinos out of the 1.69 million registered overseas voters actually voted in the last elections and even the local elections. And this, as of July 2024, the COMELEC is also planning to release guidelines on the issuance of digital voter IDs for overseas voters in the upcoming elections, and also for the polls. So this is like a sample digital ID that we can see on the left as well. And yes, their name is Dora. But yeah, that's a little bit of context on OAB. But I'll pass it to Joseph to talk a little bit about the other parts of it.
Okay, hi. So just some quick what are some of the requirements that we are needed for registering to vote? What has been posted up to date right now is the following. So really for as overseas absentee voters, it looks like we need to be at least 18 years or older, original and one copy of the valid Philippine passport, original and one copy of proof of current Filipino citizenship, such as a green card, visa, notice of action, work permit, or dual identification certificate, and then a copy printed and complete copy of a overseas voter registration form. And so that's linked here if anyone wants to put that in the chat for us. And then that looks like also in the absence of a valid passport, they're recommending either of these two, a report of birth or order of approval of their application to retain or reacquire their Filipino citizenship. I think something of note that I'll talk about a little bit later is regarding this documentation, as well as this is relatively a newer thing that's requiring proof of current Filipino citizenship here in the US. I'll come back to that. In addition, they're seeing that for seafarers, they need their seafarer's book or identification document when visiting like the embassy or consulate general in their area. This is actually for all of them. To register a vote, you actually need to, this is a relatively new thing as well, is biometric data. So photo, fingerprint, signature, those are the three things that require it. And that's actually something that will, be asked of you. And there's even lists of I'll show you later, lists of people that don't have biometric data or incomplete biometric data. Additionally, if you did relinquish your Filipino citizenship by becoming a US citizen, you'll require to apply for dual citizenship prior. And I'll show you some of that information after this, okay? Lastly, there's online services. So if you need to just update your personal information, according to their website, it says that you can just send the information and copies of documentation to their email. Okay, we'll be talking a little bit about some testimonies that actually speak otherwise to like some of this, but we can talk more about that then. So these are the facts that were presented through their media outreach and also their website. Okay. Additionally, just want to throw on here for dual citizenship. I think a lot of folks may not know that they actually apply for this. A dual citizenship, that looks like you can actually reacquire it if you became a US citizen. You just need to take the oath again, and you don't actually you're not required to renounce your allegiance to this country, copy paste. And then who else can qualify under this? Citizenship Retention and Requisition Act is also natural-born Filipino citizens of Filipinos from birth. So that includes anyone whose mother or father are citizens of the Philippines at the time of their birth. So find out if your parents were citizens at the time. That actually makes you qualified. So, for example, for myself, that's actually how I became qualified to become a dual citizen, is because my father was a citizen of the Philippines at the time of my birth. Additionally, But that looks like people born before 1973, January 17. They can also apply for becoming a dual citizen. Last but not least, that also looks like all unmarried children, whether legitimate, illegitimate, or adopted below 18, shall be deemed citizens of the Philippines. This is how my sister was able to become a dual citizen for the Philippines through the derivative dual citizenship. Okay, so just multiple different ways that people can become dual citizens for the Philippines. Some things I really want to highlight actually is the differences that we're seeing from the COMELEC, the Commission of Elections from the for overseas voters versus for back home in the Philippines. So some things of note is like any of these documents are actually legitimate documents in the Philippines versus what's required in the overseas, which is showing proof of your citizenship here and also a passport. So something as simple as a student ID or library card is actually valid identification, or any of these forms of identification here listed as well. So that's one difference I want to point out. Another difference is actually in the Philippines, one of the things that they are attempting to do is the Register Anywhere program. For us in the US, we are required to go to the closest consulate to get registered to vote, or go to one of the outreach mission outposts to get registered to vote. Whereas in the Philippines, they go out to where the people are, or attempt to during this period. So that's malls, universities, or any government office and agencies. So that's one thing that we're seeing as a difference. Now, going into the actual data of how many people have actually registered and for this last election in 2022, I think this is one thing that we really want to expose, and which is really jaw-dropping, with only 200,286 registered voters in the United States, according to our poll watchers that we sent, that we had volunteers from in the 2022 election. And also only seeing that 75,711 actually voted in the 2022 election. That's about 37% of actual voter turnout. Additionally, this is really the jaw-dropping part, really is taking into account how many Filipinos are actually in the United States, and how many actually voted around the world, right? So as Min mentioned earlier, 600,000 actually voted in the last election of the 1.69 million, right? And so that means a third of the entire votes were from the US. But look at how many how many Filipinos are actually recorded in the United States as of 2022. 4.1 million Filipinos, not including the additional 1 million undocumented. So we're seeing that there's a very big difference in the amount of people that are registered to vote, and also the amount and the population of Filipinos in the United States. And I think something that we really need to take a look at is how is the consulate informing people of what is, if people are to be able to register to vote, or if they're at risk of being deactivated from their ability to vote. And what we're seeing here, many of our volunteers were able to compile a list of getting all the consulates around the US and going to their websites and checking for any information on what is their the lists, or what ways they actually inform people about overseas absentee voting. And so I'll just go down the list here, and we have the and I linked some of the links here if people want to check them later. But essentially what we're seeing is that there is no notice if there's anyone being deactivated or the actual list of who is registered to vote, just saying like applications being approved here in Chicago. For Honolulu, nothing, zero, no information at all on overseas absentee voting on their website. Houston, no notice of their website of deactivated voters list. It just shares info on needed documentation. Doesn't even share anything about status of hearings or applications by the RERB, which is the Resident Election Registration Board. For Los Angeles, what we're seeing is that they do include a list of applications for registering to vote between these periods. But something to note is that 12,603 individuals are actually listed at risk of being deactivated as last updated in October 2022. So 2 years ago, this list was shared and 12,000 are at risk of being deactivated. So we don't actually know for these different consulates who is at risk so far. The last two consulates I'm going to highlight here are the San Francisco and Washington, D.C. embassy. So San Francisco actually just updated their website as of 5 days ago. And they included these three lists, so including certified voters, so people that are affirmed that they can vote in this upcoming election. This includes seafarers that came to this consulate. Deactivated, so 19,000 deactivated, or people with incomplete or no biometric information. So that means under the Philippine Consulate General's San Francisco's jurisdiction, so that includes California, well, Northern Californian cities. That includes also 9 other states in their jurisdiction, including Oregon, Washington, Ohio, Alaska, and additional states. But also, that means that we're seeing, once again, emphasizing 20,000 are not eligible to vote under San Francisco's jurisdiction. For Washington, D.C., what we're seeing is that they have 27,000 certified voters, and adding up the deactivated and also incomplete biometric information, we're seeing that it's 16,274 not eligible to vote. This was updated as of October 24, and what we're seeing is that it's not just including the embassy's jurisdiction of within Washington, D.C. and the states here in the U.S., but also these other countries as well within its jurisdiction. So let's add up we only have 2 consulates based off these facts. But right now, what does that look like? We see a total of 36,844 total deactivated so far. That's only including 2 jurisdictions in the entire, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jurisdictions across the entire US. This is quite jarring, no? That we see that it is a total loss of 18% of overseas absentee voters so far that have been affirmed that they are deactivated, not including the 12,000 that are at risk of deactivation and no confirmation if they were reactivated or they were completely deactivated in this period. So quite jarring to see like the when there was only 200,000 that were registered to vote in 2022, already 18% of that was already lost because of the lack of outreach or the lack of informing of Philippine nationals that they would be deactivated in this period. So these are all the facts that we have for the that we wanted to share. I think we're actually going to open it up to case studies from this point. And if people do have questions, um, please share them afterwards in the Q&A, as we do want to uh, yeah, break down some of these facts, or if there's information that folks still feels lacking, please let us know. Okay. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and go into case studies. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Nina to facilitate that.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Joseph and Min, for walking through that history and that data. Very important for us to keep in mind, especially um, as we're entering this political period and trying to, use voting as a way to engage Filipinos and let them know that their voice and their issues matter. So yeah, let's start going into the case studies. Wanted to call on Johnry from Bayan DMV and Migrante to share a little bit about your experience with OAV registration.
Hi everyone, magandang gabi po sa lahat. So I'm Jong. So I am a dual citizen, and as Nina said, helping coordinate for Bayan here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And I'm also a member of Migrante here. And I've been a registered voter at the Philippine Embassy in Washington, DC since 2016. So yeah, I'm gonna give my age away a little bit there. Um, but also want to emphasize that the embassy in Washington, D.C. does not just serve the DMV area. It also includes like all of the southeastern US. So that's everything south of DC and east of Texas. So we're talking like Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, all of those states. And also all the jurisdiction in the Caribbean. So like Cayman Islands, if there's Filipinos there, the Bahamas, US Virgin Island, like all of those places are all serviced by the embassy. And if they're lucky, maybe once a year they have what's called a consular outreach, where there's like embassy staff that go to those islands literally so that they can get their services. But yeah, that's if they're lucky. So yeah, I'm gonna be talking in like Taglish a little bit, but I'm gonna kind of walk you all through my experience with overseas voting. So in 2016 was when I registered here. That was in person, and may repairs sa embassy, like we had to sit on like the sidewalk and like wait for them to call us in. And then we had biometrics then actually. They had to take my fingerprints and all that. And it was a very just bureaucratic process. Um, and then in 2019, I had to update some of my records, so I was able to like register again for that election. Um, 2022, this past election, so I had to email the consular office of the embassy back and forth until I finally got my address updated, because yeah, I like changed residences at that point. And then also just want to share, there was a lot of experiences when we did the poll watching for Bayan Muna and the Nakabayan party lists. So yeah, if folks have the opportunity to help in that form, um, that's very agitating and lots of lessons in that experience. And one thing that I realized was um, also in the difference with like mail-in ballots, because everything had to be by mail. In 2022, unlike the US, where they'll accept everything that is postmarked, meaning like you sent it through the post office by a certain date. For the Philippine embassy and consulates, apparently, they go by the date that they receive it. So we saw literal bags of ballots that were just tossed because they didn't arrive by like the whatever deadline was it, 7 a.m. on the election day. So that in itself is disenfranchisement, like literal bags of ballots that just didn't make it through the mail fast enough. Um, so that's one thing. And then for this upcoming 2025 election, so I just moved to a new apartment, and when I emailed the Commission on Election, like that email that was showed earlier, I got two different responses. So the office based in Manila for overseas voters concerns said that, oh, you don't need to appear personally at the embassy. You can just send us your like dual citizenship paperwork and your change of address and things like that, and we'll take care of it. Pero nung sa embassy naman, the staffer emailed me and said, "Oh, for all here I'm like quoting it, for all change registration updates and reactivation of voter records, you have to appear personally because your biometrics will be taken again." So it's like, how many times do I need to be fingerprinted just to freaking vote? So there's that, and so that was an inconsistency. Um, so yeah, so then like, imagine I'm already like living right outside Washington, D.C. It was hard for me to find time to go down to the embassy. What more the millions, probably hundreds of thousands of Filipinos in the embassy's jurisdiction. So but I made time to go there in person, and what I was told is that, oh, you could have emailed us all along, but it's good that you're here in person because you get faster service. So yeah, so that's what happened. Um, and then just want to share too, like they're introducing this digital ID that was showed earlier, supposedly for more efficient voting. But syempre, kagaya ng electronic voting, when things went electronic, I think 2013, we have to be vigilant na baka ito ay electronic na dayaan or digital cheating. So, we gotta be vigilant on that process too. And I even asked them, like, what's the like benefit of having this digital ID? And they're like, oh, it's just another form of ID in the Philippines. Like, okay. But yeah, all that to say, I also don't want to like scare folks. Like, if you aren't registered yet, at least at the Philippine Embassy in DC, there's like a special desk for overseas voting. Like, and you don't need to set an appointment, you can just walk in. So, but you have to make sure, double check that list of requirements because that's another thing. They're very strict. They're yeah, very strict about has to be like an original copy and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, bukod sa inconsistency and inefficiency, how they also make it difficult is, yeah, they ask for the original paperwork for all your documents, and you have to pay for everything, down to the self-addressed envelope and even your stamp, the stamp that goes on the envelope, you have to pay for it. And now I think at least at the embassy you can do like Apple and Google Pay and credit card. Pero dati, everything had to be by check and money order only. So that's like another hassle. Um, so I share this because we also want to raise it to a level of that this is state neglect. This is kapabayaan ito sa atin bilang mga Filipino national that are here in the US. And just what was shown earlier of like almost 26,000 that are going to be deactivated. Um, that is disenfranchisement. Those are people that are robbed of an opportunity to cast their vote. And yes, there are things like extended office hours apparently in these last 2 weeks leading up to the deadline so that more people can supposedly register. There's like the no need for an appointment. They extended the registration period for like 2 years out from the election. But my question is, why is this not being adequately propped and spread among the masses and really made accessible to people? Why do I have to go on Instagram or Facebook just to see this information? Like where is it going? Why are they not going to the places where Filipinos actually work and congregate so that this information can be made accessible to us? And even the voters' education itself. And dun sa envelope, all you get is a little pamphlet of how to fill out the ballot. But there's no instruction on if you accidentally overshade the number of votes, your entire ballot gets invalidated. So there's no information like that. Um, so yun, so in closing, no, gusto ko lang sabihin na nagpapakahirap tayong kumayod sa ibang bansa, tapos ganito yung igaganti sa atin. Kailangan natin igiit yung nararapat sa atin. So, kasama ng Migrante US, let's make our voices heard. We have to assert for what's ours. We have to assert for what we deserve. And let's make a stand for the motherland, really make our, exercise our civic duty and, really make our democratic voices heard. Um, and yeah, I also just want to plug, Brandon Lee is actually in DC right now. He's actually in the next room over. And tomorrow we will be visiting the Philippine Embassy, and we will be hand delivering a letter because up until this point, the ambassador has been stonewalling and has been stonewalling and ignoring all his requests for an audience. So we're gonna bring him to the ambassador tomorrow. So just stay tuned. We're gonna prop it and see what happens. But yeah, just support the Brandon Lee tour and continue to support his fight for justice that's continuously being denied by the Philippine government. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Johnry. That was very agitating and informational. Yeah, I think the point about the fact that this is very bureaucratic and makes it very difficult for our kababayan to engage in their civil duty, their rights to vote is very important, but not being scared off by that fact that is bureaucratic. If anything, it should galvanize us more, especially as members of different organizations, to really take this task seriously of pushing to get people to register to vote. So that's also, reiterating why we're even having this webinar in the first place is we really want to push all of our organizational members and their communities and the contacts of their contacts to really push and encourage overseas Filipinos to register to vote, and if they're not a national, to become a dual citizen and register to vote because it is a right. And this is one way of being able to register the concerns of overseas Filipinos and making sure that these issues that Filipinos face every day, and also U.S. militarism and intervention, our homeland, as we can see in the campaign of Brandon Lee, are made an election issue. So we really have to take this task seriously. Please share this recording with your network so we can get even more people to register. And really start a conversation also on what it means to have your voice heard in this way, right? Or in general, like voting is just one way of having your voice heard. So with that, we'll move on to the next what do you call it, case study. So I'd like to call on, we have two more actually. So I'd like to call on Joseph from Portland, our own MC and DepSec Gen. So yeah, Joseph, would you like to share a little bit?
Yeah, just going back to how Oregon is actually a part of the jurisdiction of San Francisco. And so once a year, the Consulate General from San Francisco goes up to Oregon, goes up to Washington, and does their outreach missions. In 2021, after the pandemic happened, well, the closure of it, of everything, and then the reopening of it, hundreds of people actually went to the consulate outreach missions, attempting to get services. And it was actually, many people were turned away as they attempted to get walk-in services. Throughout this whole process, there was no clear way of no one was informing anyone really that voter registration was an option as well during that time when there were so many people there. Additionally, what we saw was that since the years since, every year since, less and less people have been coming out to these consulate outreach missions. And when I've informed people, coworkers about this, they never even heard that it was arriving that week. So the information of these consulate outreach missions are actually having less outreach to the Filipino people in the area. And earlier this month, some of our contacts that we've been building with here in Oregon actually realized that they weren't registered to vote. So what did we have to do? We had to drive up to Washington during the weekend that they were having the consulate outreach mission for that small period. Only 5 people we were able to take up, but 3 hour drive up there, and it's still a lack of visible information of what does it look like for people to go get this registration to vote. In fact, the registration to vote is, as Jong said, really, really easy. You just have to go in. You don't even need an appointment, and they let you do it. However, uh, they're not informing people. They're not going to the places, as John said. They're not um, yeah, they're not informing our communities of this service. And so what we're seeing is, as we saw in the facts, less and less people are registering to vote and even being deactivated. So just wanted to share, now, if we inform, we're trying to do more phone banking, informing people of this before the end of September 30th. However, uh, the only way for them to register to vote moving forward is either going to Alaska on their next outreach mission in September 24, or going to San Francisco. Um, so not really options, no. And so really seeing this as like a lack of outreach and neglect from the Philippine state in informing our community that this is something that they can actually do and get registered to vote for this upcoming election. I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. So yeah, as we go off and start registering our community and doing this outreach work that the consulate has neglected to do, please monitor these instances of disenfranchisement and any other inconsistencies, because we want to be able to respond and create campaigns also in response to this state neglect. So for our last sharing, I'd like to call on kasamas from Gab Excelsior, Claire and Ray to share also.
Hello, everyone. My name is Claire.
Hey, everyone.
And we're both members of Gabriella Excelsior, and we're here to speak up more on how the OAV outreach has been going in our area and what we've been hearing from some of the people we've been meeting. So when we read the memo and had the information about the OAV registration, a lot of our members were really excited to take on this outreach opportunity. Also, a lot of our members, including Ray, is eligible to vote and have a lot of family members who are eligible to vote. But we saw this as a way to meet more Filipinos in the Excelsior neighborhood, learn about what's important to them, and also to prop the Nakabayan senatorial slate and the people's issues. We have done neighborhood outreach for other campaign buildups and mobilizations, but mainly targeted local businesses and Filipino businesses. But we were able to learn from previous organizations' experiences. There was this previous election campaign called, I'm forgetting the name of it, but where they focused on more doing outreach at bus stops and BART stations. And we also learned from the limited interaction we got with people on the streets from our own experience that we should actually go out into the neighborhood and go where a lot of working Filipinos are. And so that is around, as I said, BART stations, at bus stops, some of the local coffee shops. And we also learned that this should not just be an effort of our own organization, but of all the organizations around us within our area, to really see this as a way to build a movement, right? We're here to mass movement build, not to just see this as a one-time opportunity to engage Filipinos that we're meeting. So we were able to work with other MOs in our area. And Angeline, our chairperson, actually helped to create a calendar of all the different outreach efforts that we're doing day by day in San Francisco. So for like, on Mondays, there was outreach opportunities at San Francisco State. And then at Tuesdays, there was outreach opportunities in our neighborhood and City College. And on Sundays, we had outreach opportunities at the church. So that, when we're taking, responsibility for the areas that we have, but also if people are more free on other days, we can direct them there. And we are also trying to get really the students on the different campuses to find other students who are agitated about the voter disenfranchisement and other issues that they're learning about to volunteer for the neighborhood outreach. So we're still like in the midst of this and like trying to learn our lessons quickly so that we can continue to get more people involved in this outreach. Yeah, but I'll pass it to Ray to speak a little bit more about what like the on the ground experience is like.
So outreaching in our neighborhood, Excelsior, presented several challenges, particularly finding Filipinos who were eligible for overseas absentee voter registration. I myself, I am eligible as I am still a Philippine citizen. I still have a green card, but most Filipinos here are no longer, green card holders. They are American citizens. As some were no longer Philippine citizen, despite, the areas that oh, sorry. Sorry. Despite the area's diversity, connecting with those interested people required, persistence and efforts. And I guess the takeaway from doing OAVs in the neighborhood is rather than providing them information while they're at a bus stop or, they're in a rush, getting somewhere to work or wherever, I find that collecting contact information from those folks is better. So then we can contact them later at a better time for them. And get, their information rather than, rushing and having them turn away and, go off because they have to go to work or whatever, or catch the bus or whatever. And yeah, we've learned the importance of ensuring that every voice has the opportunity to be heard, especially in overseas voting initiatives. So
yeah, thank you, Ray. I think just like on that last part, we've really learned the importance of the follow-up. So yeah, we are engaging in this neighborhood outreach and we may have like 3 to 5 minutes before someone catches a bus or needs to go to work. So in those 3 to 5, how are we getting to like, know the person, get them to give us their contact info, and then in the follow-up, see if they're interested, agitate about these issues, and then further
see if they're Filipinos first.
Yeah. And then
and then
engage
like, oh, are you a Philippine citizen or are you, a US citizen? And then that's how you, but yeah, that was a little difficult going up to people and then having them think that we're going after them for something else when really we're just trying to figure out if they're eligible to vote for the Philippines. And most were interested in like local politics, local like elections as well, not as much as overseas Filipino.
Or ask them. Another question was asking them if they know anyone also, like they have family members.
But some were definitely interested that I found that we were, walking up to, and they just didn't have time to stay.
Yeah, but that's all from us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, Claire and Ray. Yeah, I think that that was a really good set of examples on how to mobilize your whole organization to do this and not just, inventory the people you already have or like do it like one by one, but really mobilizing the strength of your organization to use this opportunity and task to register people to vote, to be able to contact build in your communities. Because it's not just our orgs that we want to register, right? We want this to really reach the masses, and really use it as just a starting point, to have deeper conversations and understand the issues of the Filipinos here in the US more deeply. So yeah, please, especially if you're in a buy-in organization, make sure you fill out your those spreadsheets that we've set out. We're really trying to hit our quantitative goals of 1,000. That's actually pretty low. 1,000 people that we want to log as registered voters by September 30. So yeah, with that, I'll pass to our overall MCs to walk us through the Q&A. We do have a number of questions, and folks can still ask them. We really want this to be helpful and generative for all of you. Oh, I think
I
you're
guess,
okay. There you go.
hello. So just wondering, yeah, if there are any questions that folks had. Maybe if actually I was told that there's a list of questions.
Oh
Would
yeah.
someone be able to pull them up? Mhm.
Um, yes, I can. So the first one is, do I need a green card or proof of residency here? I think that's already been answered, or we can answer it again.
Mhm.
In the
Yeah,
chat.
I think that is what is listed, but I really want to encourage us to challenge it, right? As we're seeing like the requirements that are needed in the Philippines, it's very much like more accessible. And so, in what ways, if you do not have a green card or any proof of that being able to be in the U.S., I think it's really an opportunity to challenge the consulate and just uh, and show them, hey, yeah, I am still a Philippine citizen nonetheless, you know, and that you still have a right to vote. And there have been experiences where people have been able to still register from our uh, some of the folks' membership. Anything else that others wanted to add for that one, or
I think also if that doesn't
Mhm.
work, I think it'd be good for especially our folks who do have um their papers here to push the consulate to do that, you know,
Mhm.
like to in asserting and questioning that. Um
Yeah,
so it's more of like mass pressure outside.
absolutely. Yeah, let's really try to mass pressure as well. And so, if people find those that as a thing, please, yeah, inform if you're part of an organization. Really, like find ways to build a mass movement around it too. Okay. Next question. Oh, John, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to that point, yeah, we've had experience of even if members didn't have like the green card or like a current social security in the US, as long as they had their Philippine passport and other like documents related to the Philippines, it was accepted by the embassy. So I guess, trying to kind of like see the logic of the Philippine government here, they want to like
Mhm.
ensure that people are like still Filipino citizens in order for them to register. But yeah, like having that requirement of a green card or some kind of US related document does make it difficult for many of our kababayan.
Mhm. Thank you for adding. Um, let's go back to the list of questions. Would someone be able to share what's the next question?
Yeah. The next question is, what are the particulars of how online voting will?
Hmm. I think that's something that we're still waiting to hear more information on. As for myself and others haven't really gotten uh, the list of like how to register or how to vote for online yet. So we'll keep an eye out for that and make sure to inform people as the date comes closer.
Yeah. Just to add to is like as we answer these questions, we're definitely not state officials of the Philippines. So we're also trying to figure it out together.
Yeah,
So if you actually
exactly.
know when the online voting or like if you hear any
Hmm.
news about it, definitely share since this is something that's very new for all of us.
Oh,
Hmm.
what I heard when I finally got to update my address at the embassy was quote unquote mas mabilis, mas secure. It's faster and more secure with the digital voting, sure. And that he didn't go into like the nitty-gritty, but basically because I asked how does it work? He said that you would be issued uh some kind of like access code and then like cast your vote that way. So yeah, I'm trying to like envision how it's gonna work.
Hmm. Okay, let's go to the next question on the queue. But yeah, just re-emphasizing again, as Min said, all of us here, we're all volunteers. We're not, oh, and also like we're not part of the consulate in any way. So we're very much learning all of this process alongside you all. That's really actually a point of uh, you know, exposing that we're trying to do as well, right? That why isn't the consulate informing people more, right? But yeah, what is the next question we want to go down to? I'm seeing also some in the chat, but what's the next one?
The next question is, what about third party agents?
Hmm.
I can actually answer this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I experienced it firsthand. LOL. But sometimes, and also especially when the consular services were backed up during the beginning of the pandemic, there are third-party agencies that offer services on behalf of the consulate or the embassy or things like that. Um, please do not go to them. Either they might take your information and you don't know where it will go, or they will charge you twice as much. There are some that are um, the consulate does work with for I think like passports and things like that. Um, but
Hmm.
you should check on the official consulate website if they actually work with the consulate. I think it's like called like VAM or something. I forget, but it's like a different like third party agency that charges twice. But if someone's like, oh, you can register for OAB through me. I'm an agency that works with the consulate. I would just say don't trust and investigate, and even bring it up to us if you see any cases like that using reporting.
Hmm. Thank you. All right. What is the next question?
Next question is the 4.1 million from the US Census example, or as in including US citizens, or 4.1 million Filipino nationals in the US, including duals? And do we know the number of Filipino nationals and dual citizens only?
Oh, that's a good you're right. So when we saw that fact earlier on the slide deck, the 4.1 was from the US Census. Um, uh, and so that is particularly something that we should double check on of how many people, not including in the U.S. Census, how many Filipinos not included in the U.S. Census are actually here in the U.S. Um, if if anyone wants to look it up now, otherwise, yeah, we'll definitely make sure to double check on that.
The next question is, I missed one. Do you have to pay taxes twice if you are a dual citizen?
Okay, I'll take this one because I get it all the time too when I like talk to people about registration. But yeah, I also want to give a disclaimer. I am not a lawyer. I'm not affiliated with the embassy in any way. I just try to like stay informed and read up on stuff. So yeah, I was actually doing some research. There's a primer that a Kasama found, and basically about dual citizenship. And the kind of layman's answer, based on my interpretation, is that if you there was some like taxation law changes in like 1997, and the long story short is if you are a resident of the US or like any other country aside from the Philippines, you only get taxed in that country. Um, yeah, but if you have like income in the Philippines, so I don't know about y'all, I don't know if you have businesses or something in the Philippines, and then that would be liable to like Philippine tax law. But so really that applies to most of us here, right? Like you declare your address of residence as the US. So you wouldn't really need to pay income tax in that way to the Philippines anymore. The only time that this would not apply and you would still be liable for Philippine tax is if the Philippines is your like primary residence. But yeah, to keep it simple for the vast majority of us here that live and work in the US, um, and don't have like business in the Philippines, then yeah, we don't need to pay Philippine income tax.
Thanks. Um, okay. Next question. Are there any OAB folieto people have been passing out? Thinking of all the statistics that were shared earlier, is this agitating or the statistics that were shared earlier were agitating and the info was helpful to see on who's eligible. Would be good to pass along with the OAB.
Just to share on that, we have only released a pamphlet of Polieto on the process on how to register to vote, but we have not actually shared out the facts that we shared in the slide deck regarding like the amount of deactivated and so on. So that's something that we do want to release later to this week. We do want to release at least a social media post, and then also that's a great point. We can definitely create a folieto as well. Thank you. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Next up, how can I probably missed it, but how can someone check if they're a citizen? Is this in reference to like dual citizenship or like as in
Yes.
like you were
This is in reference to check if someone was like, I don't know, it's possible that my parent is still a citizen of the Philippines because they were born there, but they don't know for sure, or they want to know how to check that so that they could potentially get dual citizenship.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm not an immigration lawyer, but basically, what do you call this? If your parent, because it's kind of similar to my case, my mom was still a Filipino citizen at the time. So they just need to show like their birth certificate to prove they were born in the Philippines. Like if they had their Philippine passport at the time, And yeah, we essentially, if they haven't like taken the oath to the US yet, your default citizenship then is like where you were born in Philippine law. So yeah.
Did that answer the question? Yes. Okay. Alrighty. Next question was answered, but I'll just read it out loud in case folks are listening. So someone had mentioned before that children of Filipino citizens at the time of their birth can also vote. Do they have a different registration process? And Jong replied, if they got naturalized as US citizens already, they need to do the reacquisition or dual citizenship process. If they're still Filipino or Philippine citizens, as in not naturalized US citizens yet, they just register through the embassy or consulate. And I don't know if you wanted to add anything still. Alrighty. And then folks are asking about um a primer that was mentioned earlier by Jong regarding the or like what it means to be a dual citizen. And it was also shared by Nina in her chat. Are there any other questions from people? If y'all also want to unmute or put it in the chat. Okay, I see a raised hand. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. And I have a question. By any chance, do you guys have any knowledge when are we going to have an online voting training?
No, I do not. I think that's something we'll definitely have to keep an eye out on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe just to add, we also don't know what the guidelines are yet since the COMELEC hasn't released them yet. But we don't actually know if they're even gonna release like similar to like the ballots. It's not very clear how to vote even on the fill in the ballots one. So once we know the online voting process, we'll also study it more and hopefully release a training because we're actually unsure if they will also train us to do.
So
Thank
ako
you.
po, yung nakausap ko po sa embassy staff. So base lang po ito sa sinabi niya sa akin. Yeah, no mention of a training, but just that they will be giving
Ano
uh
pa?
uh,
Starbucks
ano,
dito?
oh, they'll
Meron
be
po to
giving
sa
out this like code, user ID. You have to log in. Tapos ano yun? Oh, and this is also based on this conversation. When I asked, I like double checked. He said that the embassy and all consulates in the US will be switching to the digital voting. But yeah, it's been hard to find like official information like published about this. So again, this is just based on like the what the embassy staff told me.
Yeah, and just to add, I think these are good questions, and maybe we can collate them so that people who attended and also all of your organizations can help us in answering the questions because yeah, like we're just like all of you, right? None of us work for the consulate or the embassy unless somebody is lurking on this call that we don't know. But yeah, these questions can all really be answered in the process of doing the OAV registration and the voter education work. So please help us out and like build on the information that was presented today. So especially if you're in an organization, just like let your organizational reps know so that they can compile the data and let Bayan Migrante and Malaya know.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. yeah, any other questions? This is really a space while we're all together to also learn together because yeah, maybe folks also have more information. Okay, if not, maybe we can start closing out and see what other ways we can also continue um, fighting for, or actually taking up our rights as Filipino nationals, whether it be voting, our budget, and yeah, I'll just pass it off.
Okay. Um, so let's take a look at some of our next steps and actions that we are suggesting or proposing for you all today as next steps. So we are recommending really folks to join Bayan Migrante to really fight for a pro-people budget, right? Scan this QR code. We're really seeing the lack of the utilization of the 775,000 for overseas absentee voters, right? So take a screenshot or take out your phone and pull that up or click on one of the links. Are there two of me? 1 second. Let me just make it this one then. Okay. There we go. Okay, and then if we take a look at register the overseas absentee voting, once again, the last day is September 30th. That is in 12 days. So really encouraging your coworkers, friends, family to register, and we have the right to assert our demands as overseas Filipino nationals, right? So let's register, vote, get dual citizenship if you can, so you can vote, and also keep a lookout for news on the Makabayan blog. There folks that registered for to be senators in this upcoming election, and they have a more progressive platform that we've been seeing. And last but not least, fill out the Contradaya report form if there are any experiences and any difficulties with voter registration processes. This is, yeah, please save this link or take a screenshot of this QR code to save it because this is something that we really want to utilize in this upcoming period, even past September 30th, as more reporting of like any disenfranchisement that we're going to be seeing with like not receiving your voter information and such. So once again, if people want to take a look at Bayan and Migrante and our post on our recent updates on the senatorial slate, check out our post on social media. This is just a quick view of some of the slide deck there on Instagram or Facebook on this senatorial slate. Lastly, we are having a National Days of Action that are starting up actually tomorrow in Philadelphia. So, and actually, I'm missing one on here as well for New York, I believe. But what we're seeing is that a lot of different actions that are happening across the U.S. For the anniversary of martial law. So please come out to these, bring your coworkers and friends. I know I've even heard some of these days of action. They're actually going to inform people about the information that we shared today on registering to vote as well. So, Min, is there anything else that we wanted to share before we close out for today?
No, I think that's it. Hopefully people can really maximize this training. we'll definitely upload the webinar, or sorry, the training, and upload it so that people can watch with your members, or even people you're meeting in the outreaching process, to see if this can actually also answer some of their questions already. But thanks for coming together. Looking forward to actually seeing more registrations, and yeah, for us to
Mhm.
actually be able to assert our right to vote in our own elections, the Philippines as well.
Alrighty. With that, thank you everyone so much. And we look forward to seeing you all soon, whether on another one of our Zoom calls or in person in one of our areas. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.